The rain had not stopped for 3 nights. It hammered at the old roof like claws, scraping and tearing, each drop like a fingernail against glass. It wasn't just a storm, it was a warning, a presence trying to break its way inside, trying to drown the silence that had wrapped itself around Hollow Manor for generations. I had come to Hollow Manor to pay an unpaid debt, a debt no one in my family wanted to speak of, but which had finally called us home. The house did not feel like a home. Its halls were long and narrow, its air heavy with dampness and dust. Even the walls seemed to lean inward, their cracked plaster listening, waiting. That first night, as the storm raged, I walked the dark corridors alone. My footsteps echoed far louder than they should have, bouncing back to me like someone else's. The house creaked and shifted with the storm's breath, but beneath the noise, something else stirred. A whisker. At first, I thought it was just the wind squeezing through a crack in the shutters, but no, it was inside. Soft, trembling, a voice I couldn't quite place. Ilara. I stopped, my pulse hammering against my ribs. Ilara! It was not curiosity that moved me. It was not a rebellion. It was something older, something that had been waiting. The whisper came from the far end of the corridor, from a door I had been told never to touch. Before we came back, the family priest had warned me over and over again about that room. Do not go near it. Do not touch even the lock of the door, no matter what you hear. His voice had been sharp, almost frightened. And yet here I was, barefoot on the cold floor, moving toward the forbidden door as if drawn by a string. The sound behind the door was no longer just a whisper. It had turned to weeping now, soft and trembling, as if someone was crying with a grief too old to bear. The closer I came, the more it sounded like a name long forgotten was trying to crawl into my ears. I should have run, but I didn't. A strange familiarity wrapped around me like a cold shawl. I didn't know the woman behind that door, yet it felt like she knew me, had always known me, like she had been waiting for me, calling to me for over a decade. I reached out my hand. My fingers hovered just above the lock. Ilara! The voice cracked now, between a sob and a plea. And just as I was about to touch the door, a strong hand caught my wrist. Ilara, darling, don't touch the door. I turned and saw my father. His face was pale, his eyes wide and terrified. He pulled me back sharply, his hands trembling as if I almost stepped into a fire. Come on, let's get you to sleep. I tried to speak, to ask who was behind the door, but before I could, the voice inside changed. It grew angry. The door shook violently on its hinges, rattling as if something on the other side was clawing to get out. The whisper became a snarl, then a scream. My father dragged me away, half pulling, half lifting me. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the sound stopped. The door fell silent. A week before we were to leave for the haunted villa, I was still in my old princess room, chatting with my cousins. The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows, dust motes floating in the air, but the warmth of the light did nothing to chase away the unease in my chest. We had all lived abroad for decades. Grandpa used to speak of our homeland, his voice full of longing. He would say, "It's the most beautiful country of all. If heaven gives me one more chance, I'll revisit my home." He never did. A week after those words, he died. They had left their birthplace with the hope of building a new life, starting from nothing. But even though they carried new names, new businesses, and new wealth, they never forgot their roots. They just never dared return. But now, after so many years, the debt had caught up with us. The priest had spoken, and my family had no choice but to send us back to the land we had abandoned. My younger cousins treated it like an adventure, their chatter filling the hallways with ghost stories and dares. "Take me with you, Ilara!" One tugged at my sleeve, his eyes bright with mischief. "Tell me if there were ghosts at night!" Another giggled. I forced a smile, but their excitement felt out of place. The elders were different. My 6 uncles stood together in the sitting room, their faces pale and tight, like men carrying invisible chains. Even as they hugged me, even as they smiled, their eyes betrayed something heavier than words: sorrow and fear. They knew what I didn't. They knew the curse. And they knew, if this failed, they would lose their eldest brother. The priest, draped in white robes, sat with a cup of bitter tea. His scarf carried a golden pentagon stitched at its end, and the silver pentagon necklace on his chest glimmered dully. His voice was rough with age as he said, "My hands no longer hold the strength they once did. I will send my apprentice in a few days. He will carry out the bedding in my place. Until then, remain vigilant. The spirit will test your resolve." The word bedding sounded less like a blessing and more like a curse written in blood. When we finally packed our bags, the house felt heavier than ever. My cousins cried at the door, but my father's hand was firm on my shoulder as we stepped into the waiting car. It was no longer a family trip. It was a march toward a battlefield where survival was uncertain. That evening, as we drove, my mind kept drifting back. Not to my cousins, not to the priest, but to the stranger I had met by the college gate. Noah, the young monk with the calm eyes and the quiet voice. He was no older than me, maybe the same age, yet when he spoke, it was like the words carried the weight of centuries. "Miss, your family's karmic debt has fallen on your shoulders. It will be hard, but you must fulfill it. Otherwise, your family will repay it with blood." His words would not leave me, echoing louder than the storm outside the car window. And as we drew closer to Hollow Manor, a thought clawed at my chest. What if Noah were the only one who could help me? Sleep refused to come that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it again. The weeping behind the forbidden door, the trembling hinges, my father's terrified voice. By morning, my heart felt bruised from beating too hard against my ribs. I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed answers. And there was only one person I could think of: Noah, the young monk who had warned me at the college gate. I picked up my phone, hesitating over his number, when my mother entered the room. Her face was pale, but calm in that quiet way that told me she was hiding something. "Ilara, the priest is sending someone to guide you, his apprentice. He'll arrive today. Be polite and listen to what he says." "An apprentice?" I echoed. Oh, yes, he said he would." Then my mother took me downstairs for breakfast. That afternoon, a car stopped at the front gate. A young man stepped out, tall, serious, with soft brown hair and a faint mark of prayer beads around his wrist. "I'm Mark, apprentice of Priest John," he said politely. "I'll be staying here to assist your family." Something about him felt trustworthy, calm, steady, like standing beside a wall that wouldn't crumble even if the world did. Still, I couldn't shake the unease curling in my stomach. I was about to call Noah when a knock echoed through the hall. When I opened the front door, Noah was already there. Barefoot, as always, robes soaked from the rain, eyes deep and knowing. "I thought you might need me," he said simply. Mark's calm expression shifted, not in surprise, but in quiet recognition. "You're here sooner than expected," he murmured. I blinked between them. "Wait, you know each other?" Mark nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. We do. Noah and I trained under the same order. While I was sent to the church as Priest John's apprentice, Noah was sent to watch them from the outside. A silent eye. Noah chuckled. Let's just say I prefer helping people more than kneeling to hypocrites. I frowned. So, you're both monks, but on opposite sides? Mark shook his head. Not opposite, Ilara, just walking two paths that lead to the same truth. We're here for you. The tension in my chest eased, only slightly. For the first time since we'd arrived, I felt like maybe I wasn't walking into this curse alone. The three of us went to Mark's place, a small cottage tucked behind the church's crumbling garden wall. From the outside, it looked forgotten, ivy choking its stone walls, the wooden door weathered to silver gray. But inside, the air felt different, cleaner, softer, smelling faintly of sandalwood and old parchment. Books lined every surface. Some were holy text, others far older, their spines cracked, ink faded, written in symbols I couldn't read. A single oil lamp burned on the table, its glow casting warm gold across maps, sketches, and handwritten notes pinned to the wall. This is where I work, Mark said quietly, brushing dust from a stack of papers. Father John lets me handle the archives, said I had a steady hand for secrets. There was something bittersweet in his tone, a loneliness hiding behind the calm. I ran my fingers along a shelf filled with relics, tiny charms carved from bone, pressed flowers sealed in resin, an old silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon. Every object seemed to hum faintly, like it remembered something it couldn't say aloud. Noah studied the room silently, then turned to me. His eyes, usually sharp and unreadable, softened just a fraction. Good, he said. For now, focus only on what must be done. The rest will reveal itself in time. I wanted to believe him. Outside, thunder rolled, low and distant, like a heartbeat beneath the earth. And in that quiet, between two monks and 100 silent books, I felt the first thread of something binding us together. Not faith, not fear, but fate. Mark gave me a small, reassuring nod, his calm presence steadying me. Even though the truth was frightening, even though the walls seemed to close in around us, I felt less alone. The moment was brief, yet it changed everything. I knew then that the path ahead was not just about the manor or the ghost or my family. It was about secrets, centuries old, alliances hidden in plain sight, and a destiny I had only just begun to grasp. I sank into the chair, gripping my knees. Noah sat beside me, his presence steady, a silent reassurance in the growing tension. Mark's voice lowered, almost a whisper. The woman who calls your name, her name is Leora. She was more than a woman of our ancestors' time. She was a moon goddess of rare power, born to heal and to protect. Her nature was kind, her heart willing to sacrifice herself for those around her. But your ancestor betrayed her, and the church hunted her mercilessly. Pieces of her soul were scattered, one bound to the manor, one to her preserved body, and one to you, Ilara. You are her vessel. The words hit me like fire. My chest warmed unnaturally, like something alive was reaching inside me. She did not truly die, Mark continued. Her body held back the last spark of her soul. Your blood carries what the church could not destroy. And now, finally, the fragments are stirring. You must awaken them. The moment I heard the name, everything changed. I felt a warmth in my chest. Gentle at first, then burning, pulsing like a second heartbeat. I tried to speak, to ask a question, but the heat grew stronger, rising to my throat. My vision blurred. The room wavered, Mark's voice fading into a distant echo. Noah shouted my name, but it sounded far away, like he was underwater. And just before darkness took me, I saw something behind them. A woman's shadow outlined in silver light, watching, waiting. Strings pulled at me, familiar and strange, as if unseen hands tugged my soul through time. Then the world fell silent. When my eyes opened again, I wasn't in Mark's house. I lay on soft grass, bathed in sunlight, the air crisp and sweet. Somewhere nearby, a girl sang in a lilting, gentle voice while a boy played the flute. The smell of warm pie drifted through the breeze, grounding me in a place that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. The girl stopped singing, laughter threading her words. "Leonard, aren't you going to the singing competition? Or will you stay my flute man forever?" The boy smiled, eyes brimming with love. "I will go. If I can't beat you, how else will I ever marry you?" His teasing gave way to a worried gaze. "But you'll keep your promise, right, Leora?" The name echoed inside me. Leora. The girl laughed again, cheeks pink, and plucked a fallen leaf from his hair. "How many times must I say it?" "Just one more," Leonard begged softly. She buried her face against his chest, blushing. "All right, you stubborn man." Her playful slap against his chest felt like a victory to him. Watching them, a deep sadness welled up in me. "So that was your lover, Leora." The vision shifted. A wedding. The scene shone with light and joy. Leora stood radiant in a gown of shimmering gold, so bright it almost hurt to look at. Its intricate embroidery gleamed like fairy handiwork, each thread alive with moonlight. A crown of delicate gold rested on her head, simple yet flawless. Beside her, Leonard wore a golden suit tailored to perfection, his own crown gleaming as he took her hand. They exchanged vows, voices steady with devotion. The tribe's chief stepped forward, smiling broadly. "Celebrate, my people! Tonight we feast for their union. Tomorrow we gather again for our future queen's coronation. Tomorrow she will be blessed by the moon goddess herself." Cheers erupted, echoing into the night sky. But then, the vision darkened. The wedding glow gave way to fire and steel. Leora and Leonard stood in battle facing a man who looked eerily like my grandfather in his youth, but sharper, crueler. James Vance, founder of the Vance Group. Beside him, another figure loomed, Peter, the church's ruthless head. Leora's magic flared, and Leonard fought at her side, their love bound in every strike. But James raised a storm of sand, blinding Leonard. At that moment, Peter drove his blade into Leora's chest. Almost at once, James's sword pierced Leonard. They fell together. Leonard's bloodied arms cradled Leora. "Leora, my wife, don't leave me, please." She choked on blood, trying to summon healing light. "By heaven's grace, heal, my beloved." Her voice broke, the spell fading. Leonard's breath came ragged, then softer. "Don't cry, wife. You will live forever, won't you? I'll come again. Wait for me." His hand slipped from hers. He was gone. Leora's scream tore through the night, grief shaking the earth itself. Her body tried to heal, but what use was a beating heart without her husband, her family, her people? Then another blade pierced her again, deeper, colder. Blood pooled as her strength ebbed. Slowly her soul slipped free. Hovering over her body, she looked down in horror. James and Peter stood over her corpse. "She's still useful," Peter murmured. "Her body must be studied." James smirked. "Even drained of life, she's exquisite." Ice swept through me. They weren't done with her. Determined, Leora began a desperate incantation, a soul-separating spell. Pain ripped her essence apart, agony worse than death. But she didn't hesitate. Her soul split into 3 shards: protection, restoration, and revenge. Revenge and restoration she sent to Peter's shoulder to curse his bloodline. The protection she bound to her own body. She longed to shield Leonard's body too, but the enemies carried him away. All she could do was press a fragment of protection into his wedding ring, a fragile promise to meet again. The vision cracked, the golden glow fracturing into darkness. And then I was falling, plummeting back toward my body where Noah's voice called my name. The words on the wall glowed faintly red. He wears Leonard's face. Even after we sealed the room, I couldn't stop seeing those words. They carved themselves into the back of my eyelids every time I blinked. Mark was the first to break the silence. Ilara, don't think too deeply about it. The message could be another trick. Vengeful spirits feed on fear. But even as he said it, his eyes refused to meet mine. Noah was crouched near the silver box, drawing protection sigils with salt and ash. His expression was grave, his voice low. No, that wasn't random. The spirit recognized something. Someone who carries Leonard's echo. My heart lurched. Leonard's echo? You mean his reincarnation? Noah looked up, his gray eyes clouded with concern. Possibly. If Leora's protection fragment stayed bound to her body, her restoration and revenge fragments may have found hosts of their own. Souls do not always sleep quietly. I felt the air leave my lungs. Then someone alive now could be Leonard? He nodded slowly. And whoever it is, the curse will be drawn to him first. Mark stood suddenly, too fast. That's enough for tonight. Ilara needs rest. We can't trust everything that box showed us. His tone was firm, but his hand was trembling. Noah gave him a long, unreadable look. Strange, Mark. You seem very interested in ending this conversation. Mark glared. Don't twist this. I'm trying to protect her. Protect her, Noah said softly, or hide something. The air between them turned sharp. I stepped between the two before their stares could ignite into something worse. Please, both of you, enough. That night, I couldn't sleep. The storm outside had calmed, but the silence felt heavier than thunder. The house seemed to breathe. The walls creaked, slow and deliberate, as if something moved just beyond sight. And then, from the corner of my room, I saw him. A shadow. Tall, faintly luminous around the edges. A man's silhouette. Leonard? I whispered before I could stop myself. The figure didn't answer. It only turned its head toward me, and for a heartbeat I saw his eyes, warm, golden brown, filled with the same sorrow I'd felt in Leora's memories. Then he vanished. I ran to the window, my breath caught in my throat. Outside, only mist. It curled around the garden statues like pale fingers. When morning came, I told Noah everything. He listened in silence, hands clasped, eyes lowered. Then it's begun, he murmured. Leora's protection fragment has awakened inside you. It's searching for the other two, restoration and revenge. When you saw that spirit, a bond formed. Before I could reply, Mark stepped in, pale, steady, trying too hard to sound calm. So what do we do, monk? Sit around until another ghost pays us a visit? Noah didn't rise to the bait. We search the graves. If the Heart Tribe lies buried beneath this land, the truth sleeps with them. I hesitated. Under the manor? He nodded once. Beneath the chapel. That's where the church hid what they couldn't burn. By dusk, we found the entrance, an old wooden hatch half buried under rotted floorboards near the altar. Mark pried it open. A wave of air rose up to meet us, cold, wet, and heavy with the scent of old stone and something far older, something restless. We descended one by one, our lanterns shaking. Each step groaned, echoing into the dark like a warning. The air was thick and damp, the kind that clings to skin and memory alike. The chamber opened before us, vast and circular, lined with ancient coffins carved in symbols that glowed faintly in our light. The names, etched into rusted plates, were not in any language I knew, yet they hummed in my head like half-remembered lullabies. Noah's beam stopped on a cracked tombstone at the far end. Here, he breathed, Leora Valen, queen of the Moon Tribe. I knelt beside it, my hand tracing the letters. Warmth bloomed in my chest again, soft at first, then burning, pulsing with each heartbeat. A faint crackling filled the air. One by one, the signals on the coffins began to glow brighter, like veins of silver catching fire. Mark swore under his breath. It's reacting to her again. Noah's eyes went wide. His book slipped from his hands. No, this isn't her doing. Something else is waking up. The ground shuddered. Dust rained from above. The scent of iron flooded the chamber, sharp and metallic. And then came the sound, a low, resonant hum, deep enough to vibrate in our bones. The signals pulsed in time with it, casting long, writhing shadows across the stone. I swallowed hard. This feels alive. Noah's voice was barely audible. It is, and it knows we're here. Mark gripped his lantern tighter. Then we've already gone too far. The hum grew into a roar, shaking the walls. From the far end, the darkness rippled, and something rose. A tall shape cloaked in silver fire, its outline shifting, its presence pressing against the air like a storm about to break. The light from our lanterns flickered, then died. Only the silver glow remained, pulsing, watching, waiting. Noah whispered a prayer in a language older than words. I felt it too, the weight of centuries, the sorrow of the forgotten, the rage of a queen who had waited too long. The coffin before me trembled. The signal of the heart tribe flared to life, and the dead began to remember. From the shadowed corner, a shape began to rise, a tall figure draped in black, its face hidden. The glow from the runes reflected off a silver pendant around its neck. When it spoke, the voice was familiar. You shouldn't have come here, Alara. Mark froze, his face drained of color. No, I whispered, backing away. That voice. Noah's gaze snapped toward Mark, realization dawning like lightning. Mark, he said softly, remove your necklace. Mark didn't move. His hand went instinctively to the silver chain at his throat, the same pendant that hung around the shadow's neck. Alara, Noah said, voice steady but low, he's not who he says he is. The lantern light flickered. Mark's shadow stretched unnaturally long, merging with the figure in the dark. And when the light steadied again, the two were one. Mark stood there, eyes no longer brown, but glowing gold. The silence was shattered with a roar of divine thunder. A whirl of black smoke gathered near the altar, and from it emerged the high priest, his robes burning with unholy sigils, his eyes twin coals of molten gold. Insolence, he thundered, his staff striking the floor, cracking the stone beneath our feet. How dare you mortals defile what belongs to the church? You awaken forces you cannot comprehend. Noah raised his hand, forming a defensive sigil in midair. We comprehend enough to see through your lies. The priest sneered, his voice laced with venom. Lies? I am the vessel of the Almighty. I have consumed demons, angels, and men alike to maintain the purity of this land. The air rippled with heat. Flames erupted, twisting into the shapes of tortured souls, his stolen power, writhing around him like serpents. Mark's face hardened, a flicker of Leonard's spirit behind his eyes. You once took my wife's body to toy with God's creation. You took my tribe's souls and chained them to your greed. No more. He thrust his palms forward, summoning a radiant arc of holy flame that clashed with the priest's infernal torrent. The chamber shook violently. Ancient carvings shattered. The walls screamed as divine and demonic energy collided. The priest roared in fury, veins glowing black as he absorbed more demonic essence. Horned-like shadows curled from his temples, and his voice became a growl of 100 damned souls. I cannot be destroyed. I am eternal. The church is divine. Even your goddess fell before our might. Mark's breath came ragged, his golden aura flickering. He turned to me, voice soft despite the chaos. Ilara, if anything happens, protect her body. Promise me that. I shook my head fiercely. No, we end this together. He smiled, sad and bright all at once. That's what Leonard's wife said once, too. The priest gathered a final surge of power, screaming, "Die!" and unleashed a storm of dark lightning. But before it struck, the mark on my hand blazed hot white. A soft melodic whisper echoed in my mind. Leora's voice. My child, let the moon's light cleanse the shadow. I rose, my body moving as if guided by another will. Together with Mark and Noah, we began chanting a lost spell, a purification rite of the ancient tribe. The air brightened, silver threads weaving from our palms, entwining into a circle that enclosed the priest. By moon and memory, I cried, be undone. A massive column of lunar fire erupted, swallowing the high priest whole. His screams echoed through the chamber as his demonic essence burned away, each cry weaker until only silence remained. He fell to the floor, body trembling, power gone. The walls of the crypt cracked, the corrupted magic evaporating like mist in the morning sun. The church's main strength had fallen. Noah lowered his hand, panting. It's done. The heart of their corruption is gone. We turned toward the center of the chamber, Leora's body. Still untouched, still glowing. But now, something had changed. Mark's golden aura pulsed in rhythm with the silver shimmer surrounding her coffin. Her protection spell, he murmured. It's calling me. Before I could respond, the ground trembled violently. A powerful force pulled at our bodies, dragging us toward the center. A blinding light burst forth. The collision of Leonard's awakened soul and Leora's sealed protection exploded into a radiant firestorm that swallowed us all. Outside, the world changed. The villagers froze mid-step. The sky shimmered silver. Memories, long buried, awakened in every soul. Fathers, mothers, children, all of them remembered the lives they once lived as Leora's people. And then, from the light, Leora arose. Her body glowed like liquid moonlight, eyes gentle yet fierce, her silver hair flowing down her back. Mark, no longer just Mark, but Leonard reborn, stood before her, trembling. He dropped to his knees. My queen, my love, I've waited 1,000 years. She knelt with him, voice breaking with love. And I waited for you to find me again. They embraced, gold and silver light intertwining like sun and moon. From the doorway, faint sobs echoed. 2 figures, an elderly couple, hands clasped together, stood there, tears streaming down their faces. Leora turned slowly, and her eyes widened. Mother! Father! They ran to her. Her mother wept, touching Leora's face as if it would vanish. My child, our moon, our pride, we've lived lifetimes searching for you. Leonard Mark froze, too, as the old man stepped forward. Son, we met in every life, but never remembered until now. Forgive this old fool for failing you then. Mark bowed, his voice shaking. No, father. You endured. You were reborn to see this day. The four embraced, their tears merging with the light that filled the hall. When I opened my eyes, soft moonlight bathed the chamber. A beautiful woman was kneeling beside me. Leora, radiant as the moon goddess herself. She smiled tenderly and placed a hand on my forehead. Child, if you wish, you may become my apprentice. My throat tightened. Me? Her eyes glowed with warmth. Across 1,000 years, I've lived and died with my memories dormant. Only your kind heart could awaken my true restoration fragment. I always wished for a daughter like you. Tears blurred my vision. Yeah, master. She smiled, kissed my forehead, and whispered, From this day on, you are my first apprentice. In the weeks that followed, the world began to heal. The church collapsed from within, its corruption burned away. Those whose souls could still be saved were redeemed. Those whose hearts were pure evil were left powerless. My uncles returned home, choosing to rebuild what was lost. Leora welcomed them all, her heart vast enough to forgive 1,000 wrongs. Though she took no crown and gave no orders, everyone obeyed her word as if it were divine law. Mark and Leora's love once again became the heart of our land. I taught her about the modern world. Electric lights, music, the small wonders of humanity. She taught me the language of the stars, the rhythm of magic, and the healing that flows from kindness. Whenever Mark and she went on their long-awaited dates, they always dragged me along until I gave in and brought Noah with me. He grinned once, teasing, Guess I owe the goddess a thank you for this date. I rolled my eyes, but smiled anyway. Together, under the silver glow of the eternal moon, I finally understood. The curse was never meant to destroy us. It was meant to restore us, to bring light back to where faith once fell to greed, to remind us that even through death, betrayal, and centuries of silence, love always finds its way home. 5 years had passed since the fire that swallowed the Church of Light and burned away the curse that had haunted our bloodline. 5 years since the moon goddess, Leora, rose again, not as a vengeful spirit, but as a living queen, reborn from ashes and mercy. The Hollow Manor, once wrapped in fog and whispers, now gleamed beneath the silver moon. Its cracked walls were rebuilt with songs and laughter. Every night, candles glowed in its windows, not as offerings to the dead, but as beacons for the living. I stood on the balcony overlooking the moonlit gardens. The night breeze carried the scent of lilies and roasted fruit, mixed with soft music and children's giggles. It was the festival of rebirth, the day we celebrated the end of our 1,000-year curse. A gentle voice broke my thoughts. Still awake, Ilara? I turned and found Leora, her gown shimmering like liquid light. Her long silver hair fell over her shoulders, eyes glowing faintly like twin moons. Her presence always warmed the air, calm, divine, and utterly human at the same time. You can't sleep either? I asked, smiling. She joined me, resting her hands on the railing. The moon's too beautiful tonight. It reminds me of the night we took our vows to protect this land and each other. I looked down at the garden. Mark stood there, helping the villagers light paper lanterns. His once cold eyes now carried peace and humor. He looked up at us and waved. The Moon Sisters are brooding again, he called out with a grin. Leora laughed softly. Her laugh, once lost for centuries, now filled every corner of this world. Behind her, 3 small figures ran barefoot through the garden chasing fireflies. They're triplets. The children were born under a rare lunar eclipse, the villagers calling them the 3 lights. Each one carried a faint trace of moonlight in their eyes. Lunel, the oldest, calm and thoughtful, always seen guiding the younger ones. Lyric, the boy with endless curiosity, who hummed songs that made even flowers bloom. And Lunaris, the quietest, who spoke little but watched everything with a wisdom too deep for his years. Mark lifted Lyric into his arms as Leora called to them, "Don't wander too far, loves." The scene shimmered like a dream, the goddess, her guardian, and their moon-born children. I smiled, but felt that same ache in my chest. The bond between us, master and apprentice, had grown unbreakable. Leora taught me magic, but more than that, she taught me to listen. To the world, to the moon, to myself. Master, do you ever wonder what comes next? Her eyes turned toward the distant hills, where the old church's ruins lay buried in ash. Peace never stays still, child. It moves, like the tide, like light. The wind shifted. My pendant, her gift, began to glow faintly. A whisper followed, faint but unmistakable. Ilara. I froze. It wasn't Leora's voice. It was something older, something hollow. The air grew colder. The candles below flickered. For just a second, the moon dimmed, as if a veil had crossed its face. From the edge of the forest, I saw a tall figure cloaked in black, standing utterly still. No face, no sound, just watching. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished, leaving behind only the faint scent of burnt scripture and old smoke. My heart pounded. Master, did you feel that? Leora didn't answer immediately. Her gaze lingered on the horizon, her expression calm but troubled. The church's ashes still whisper, she murmured. Something survived. She turned to me, her tones soft but steady. Whatever comes, Ilara, remember my words. Kindness is not weakness, but never forget to be kind to yourself first. Down below, Mark called again. Come on, the lanterns won't wait forever. Leora smiled and took my hand. Let's go, child. We descended the steps together, joining the laughter, the light, and the warmth. Thousands of lanterns rose into the sky, tiny moons floating over the reborn land. But far beyond the hills, deep within the broken ruins of the old church, a single black flame flickered to life again. It danced once, twice, and then whispered, Ilara.